What's up, everyone? I'm Tamara, and welcome to my YouTube channel. So excited to share this topic with you today, which is CPTSD and NPD offended. And if you don't know what CPTSD stands for, it's complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which everyone has heard of PTSD. But when you put the complex on there, it's often associated with people who have borderline personality disorder, but it's along the PTSD spectrum. And honestly, it's my latest fascination. I'm trying to figure it out because I've watched so many videos and read so many things, and I'm just kind of having to figure it out on my own because I think the stuff out there is a little bit confusing to me. So what triggered me to want to make this video was I was talking to this lady, and she was telling me that these two guys that we know, and she knows them a lot better than I know them, but she said they're both so easily offended. You have to walk on eggshells. And one of the guys has told me that he thinks he has PTSD. I think it's more complex PTSD. And then the other guy shows signs of being a narcissist. And one of the things she was telling me that I also understand, she said they've both been through trauma, and both of them are very high functioning people. Like they do a lot, but there's something else going on. And for her to tell me they're both so easily offended. And then she said they both have had traumatic childhoods and growing up. And I'm like, yeah, they both have experienced trauma. So that's a clue that somebody could have CPTSD or they could have NPD, which is Narcissistic Personality Disorder. So easily offended individuals are hypersensitive and tend to take things personally. They gather in a place called hypersensitivityville, where they have the power to detect microaggressions and turn compliments into crisis. They compete in the victimhood Olympics, hold grudges, and scrutinize everything, even harmless cookies. Conversations become landmines, and comedians avoid performing for them. Their sensitivity stems from past traumas and a constant need for validation. They remember insults but forget compliments. They navigate life delicately, and encountering them requires caution and awareness that offense is subjective. Here's a little caveat for you. Just because somebody is easily offended does not mean that they have a personality disorder or PTSD or any of that stuff. They could have, if you look in handwriting analysis, people with big D loops are easily offended. That means if they're really big, it means that there's even a little bit of paranoia there. And some of these people could be codependent. They could have been raised in a household with a parent who had BPD or narcissism, and so they've developed a heightened sensitivity. It was modeled for them. But not only that, they've been insulted a lot, and so they develop this hypersensitivity. You could just be a person who's highly sensitive for no reason at all with fantastic parents. So I'm just saying that just because I'm saying that somebody's easily offended doesn't mean that they have any type of disorder. But you, as a counselor, I would definitely want to dig deeper and find out what the heck is going on, because in their mind, what you're saying to them, telling them, doing to them is super real, and it doesn't matter how you try to explain it with logic. You can forget logic. Even if these are objective people, throw that out the window. So dealing with people who have CPTSD or NPD sometimes feels like walking through a minefield of misunderstandings and arguments, right? It's like trying to explain that you took the clothes out of the dryer and they respond with, "I never said you didn't take the clothes out of the dryer." And you're like, wait, I didn't say you didn't say that I didn't say that. It's like a never-ending loop of confusion. So picture this argument. So Sarah and Mark were in the kitchen preparing dinner together. Sarah asked Mark to pass the olive oil, but her tone came across as a bit abrupt without intending to. Mark, who has NPD traits of being sensitive and prone to taking offense, took umbrage at Sarah's tone. "Why are you speaking to me like that?" he snapped. "I didn't do anything wrong." Sarah, suffering from CPTSD, from a history of trauma and abuse, immediately felt anxious and defensive at Mark's sudden shift in demeanor. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean anything by my tone," she said gently. Please just pass the olive oil." "No, I want to know why you're being so hostile towards me," Mark insisted, his voice rising. "You obviously have a problem with me if that's how you're going to talk to me in my own house." Sarah's heart began to pound as memories of past conflict were triggered. She tried to calmly explain she meant no hostility, but Mark refused to back down. "Don't try and gaslight me," he yelled. "Just admit it. You're mad at me for something. Stop playing victim. I can see right through it." By this point, Sarah was unable to reason with Mark's projection and accusations. She fled to the kitchen, desperately needing space to self-soothe and regain equilibrium. Mark seethed, upset that his view of the situation hadn't been accepted without question. He disliked anything challenging his ego. For those with narcissistic personality disorder, their perception essentially becomes their reality. So here are some key points that I want you to be mindful of. NPD involves a fragile and inflated sense of self. Any threats to that self-image are experienced as intensely threatening. They lack insight and have trouble acknowledging their own faults or limitations. Internal criticism is avoided through defense mechanisms. In interactions, they automatically perceive slights and challenges where there may be none at all through a lens of hypersensitivity and grandiosity. Others who disagree with their perceptions are viewed as difficult, critical, or out to get them. Dissenting views threaten their precarious self-esteem. Reality is thus experienced solely through the filter of their own self-centered needs and biases. Anything not fitting that perception is reinterpreted, rationalized, or denied. They are unable to take different perceptions due to a lack of empathy. Other viewpoints hold little validity compared to their own. Over time, this distorting cognitive pattern becomes ingrained, making it difficult for them to acknowledge inaccuracies in how they perceive themselves and others. So, in short, for those with NPD, their subjective perceptions and experience essentially becomes their internalized reality, as they lack the objectivity or insight needed to recognize its distortions. Complex post-traumatic stress disorder, CPTSD, can lead to a skewed perception of why individuals with CPTSD might feel the need to be defensively correct in an argument as well. CPTSD is a psychological condition that can develop after experiencing prolonged trauma, such as abuse or neglect. It affects conditions that can develop after experiencing prolonged trauma, such as abuse or neglect. It affects a person's thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, often causing difficulties in interpersonal relationships. One of the core symptoms of CPTSD is hypervigilance, which refers to an intense and persistent state of alertness to potential threats. This hypervigilance can cause individuals with CPTSD to perceive situations as more dangerous or threatening than they actually are. In the context of an argument, this heightened sense of threat can lead to a defensive response, as the person may feel a need to protect themselves from perceived harm. Additionally, individuals with CPTSD may have a distorted perception of themselves and others due to the trauma they have experienced. They may struggle with low self-esteem, feelings of worthlessness, and a constant fear of being judged or rejected. In an argument, these negative self-perceptions can contribute to a defensive stance, as they may feel the need to prove their worth or protect themselves from potential rejection. You may think, how do I deal with these people who are coming at me with these types of behaviors? But it's important that you understand that these are defensive behaviors and not a conscious choice of the person, but it's a result of psychological impact of trauma. So understanding and empathy from others can play a crucial role in supporting these individuals with CPTSD and managing their defensive responses and working towards a healthier communication pattern. So if you're not one of these people who have this, it's almost like we have to kind of be step above it or beside it and handle them accordingly. So fear not, my friend. Here are some tips to navigate these tricky conversations with a sprinkle of lightheartedness. So, number one, tune in and groove with active listening. When you're talking to somebody with CPTSD or NPD, then you want to put on your best DJ headphones and really listen to their tunes. Repeat back what they're saying to make sure that you're rocking to the same beat. Number two, keep your cool like an ice cream cone. Instead of turning up the heat, stay as cool as a refreshing ice cream cone on a sunny day. Avoid getting into a rap battle of words that might melt the conversation away. Number three, I is a magic word. Use the magic word I to cast a spell of understanding instead of pointing fingers like a game of Twister. You want to say things like, I understand it as blah, 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 to keep the conversation flowering smoothly. Number four, pick your battles like a strategic video game. Just like in a video game, not every disagreement needs a boss fight. If the conversation seems to be heading towards a level of frustration, hit pause and come back to it later when you both have extra lives. Number five, set boundaries with a sprinkle of glitter. It's important to have boundaries like a sprinkle of glitter that adds sparkle to your conversations. If things get too intense or disrespectful, kindly express that you'd prefer to keep the discussion positive and constructive. 6. When in doubt, seek a dance partner. If you find yourself constantly tripping over your words or struggling to navigate these conversations, don't hesitate to seek help from a professional dance instructor. I mean, a mental health professional. They can teach you some cool moves to twirl through those interactions with grace. And remember, my friend, communication is a dance. And sometimes we all step on each other's toes, but with a touch of humor and a dash of understanding, you can waltz through these conversations with a smile on your face. Keep grooving. And just remember that you gotta be a little sensitive when it comes to these conversations and show respect when you're interacting with somebody who might have CPTSD or narcissism. And while it's true that individuals with these conditions may have specific triggers or sensitivities, it's important to remember that everyone's experiences and reactions are unique. So if you're someone who has CPTSD or NPD, please be aware of your sensitivity levels, that your brain is misconstruing some of the things. It's not filtering it out in the way that it should. So be aware of that. Give people a little wiggle room, please. And I know that that's easier said than done. And then if you are a person who's trying to navigate the tricky terrain of not hurting someone's feelings or not stepping on their toes, as we just talked about, then here are a few guidelines to help you to avoid unwittingly offending somebody with CPTSD or NPD. Number one, be aware of potential triggers. So try to avoid topics or situations that may remind them of past trauma or challenge their sense of self-worth. And it's important to note that triggers can vary from person to person. So open communication is key. And just, don't test the waters. If you know that that's something that's going to upset them, then avoid that topic of conversation. Number two, use compassionate language. Be mindful of the words you choose and try to speak in a compassionate and non-judgmental manner. Avoid making derogatory or dismissive comments that may invalidate their experiences. And you might be like, I should be able to say whatever I want to say. I'm not being mean, so why can't I just speak my mind? If you know a person has this issue, it is better for both of you to be a little bit more careful and cautious, which may not be as fun, but it ain't fun when you get into a huge, big argument. Number 3, respect personal boundaries. Everyone has different comfort levels when it comes to personal space and emotional intimacy. Respect their boundaries and avoid pushing them to share more than they are comfortable with. Number 4, listen actively and validate their feelings. Show empathy by actively listening to their concerns and validating their emotions. Avoid minimizing or dismissing their experiences, as this can be hurtful. And by actively listening, sometimes that means be quiet when you feel like, uh-oh, I'm about to go off now. Just be quiet. And then also with a narcissist, they can still learn. They're intelligent, and you're modeling for them how to show care and be a good listener. And they may pick up on some of that and start to mimic it so that it can become a part of themselves too. You're helping them to develop empathy. Number 5, avoid generalizations or stereotypes. It's important to not make assumptions or rely on stereotypes when interacting with individuals who have CPTSD and NPD. Treat each person as an individual and be open to understanding their unique experiences. So sometimes when we know somebody has a disorder, it changes how we interact with them. And I think that is important. I think we have to do that. But we also want to still remember they are human beings as well. So number 6, educate yourself. Take the time to learn about CPTSD and NPD to better understand the challenges and nuances associated with these conditions. This can help you approach conversations with more empathy and understanding. And even though it's hard, remember that everyone deserves to be treated with respect and understanding, regardless of their mental condition. And by being mindful of this, you can create a more inclusive and supportive environment for individuals with CPTSD and NPD. Subscribing to my channel is the best decision you'll make today. Well, aside from choosing breakfast cereal, which I'm about to have some in just a minute, but I really do enjoy you listening to my content, so do subscribe. Also, check out my book, The Workplace Narcissists, which is all about narcissism, bad behavior, and how we can get along with them a lot better. And if your love life is in shambles, or you just want to have a great love life, either way, check out my book, Flip the Script on Love, because it's going to help ya. I think these days, everybody is so confused that we all need a little coaching in that area. And then finally, if you understand Myers-Briggs personality types, I wrote a book that has a chapter for all 16 types called From ENFJ with Love, so check that out. Descriptions or the links will be in the description box. They're on Amazon by Tamara Hunter Zyon. And I will see you, my lovely, wonderful, amazing people who are trying to understand just like me. I'll see you guys in my next video, so be sure to subscribe and like the video. Let me know if there are topics that you want me to do. Bye!